My boyfriend, 37 years old of 7 years, is being very passive-aggressive these days and making comments about the dirty house. I think he wants me to clean more, but he's not going about it the right way and is reverting to making comments or doing it himself in a passive-aggressive way. He will clean, but it seems like he's very angry or frantic while doing it. We were long distance for the first 4 years, and he kept telling me he's working on fixing his house up, which he has barely touched. When I bring this up to him in a polite way, "When is the bathroom floor going to be done?" he gets immediately defensive and says something like, "Well, if we could stop going out every weekend, then I would have time to do it." Going out equals going fishing at his favorite spots. He refuses to go to the spots that are my favorite because we catch fewer fish. I like fishing for trout, which are more difficult to find. He likes bass fishing. Basically, the entire house is half finished. He has only gotten 2 big projects semi-finished. The kitchen is still halfway done. The bathroom still has no grout on the tub or floor/walls/ceiling. The rugs in the house are so disgusting and messed up, it makes vacuuming a nightmare because it constantly catches a tear and gets tangled in it. The kitchen sink still hasn't been properly sealed for over 2 years now, so the counter is getting water damage around the sink, which he thinks is my problem, because when I do dishes, some water gets around the edges. I always clean it up. He's the one who leaves a puddle next to the sink. I can't properly clean the bathroom because the floor is wood and there are no walls or ceilings. There are nails sticking out everywhere. When I've given the house as much of a deep clean as I can, he immediately, within minutes, leaves a mess somewhere. For example, I'll spend hours cleaning the fridge for him to immediately not properly close a condiment bottle and have it smeared somewhere. If I deep clean the toilet, the next pee he takes is sprinkled all over the back. It feels like I'm living with a disgusting frat boy, which I have accepted for the most part, but it feels like he expects me to follow him around cleaning his messes up, which I did not sign up for. He does not ask me for any bill money and completely financially supports me. So I'm feeling really guilty for not having the clean house. But also, he makes a mess like a toddler and expects me to deal with it. Which I haven't been. I'm honestly so depressed these days I could care less, and I'm just following his lead. I also don't appreciate that he keeps guilting me for not getting the house finished, when the 2 half-finished projects literally only took a week. And I didn't guilt him for not hanging out with me. I was relieved it was getting done and tried to stay out of his way. It feels like he just uses me as an excuse to evade fixing the house up at this point. He says, "I'm not fixing the house up because I need to spend quality time with you." But it feels like he really means, "I'm going to use you as an excuse to shirk my duties," because I have told him more than once, I don't always want to go bass fishing, even though I do it for him every weekend. To add in that the 2 half-finished big projects were done over 2 years ago at this point. So our bathroom has not had walls or a floor in 2 years. He hasn't even grouted the tub yet. He told me not to deep clean the tub because it has no grout. So he's also setting me up for complete failure. I have been cleaning the tub, but I already know he's probably going to flip out when he realizes there's water damage due to him not grouting it 2 years ago. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I would accelerate getting a full-time job and securing your financial independence so you can stop being trapped in this dumpster fire of a house and relationship, move out and break up. Realistically, your boyfriend is middle-aged, and this is who he is. Certainly not a future I would sign up for if I had other options available to me. Good luck. Comment 2. Move out. Yes, it will cost money, but your boyfriend sounds insufferable, so no big loss. Plus, you will gain your independence and free yourself from parenting an adult man. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, the last few days have been a real eye-opener. It all started when I decided to take matters into my own hands and hired a handyman to come in and at least get the bathroom floor done. I didn't tell my boyfriend about it because I knew he'd just make excuses or get defensive. The handyman came in and did a fantastic job. It only took him a day to finish what my boyfriend had been putting off for years. When my boyfriend came home and saw the finished floor, he was furious. He didn't say anything at first, but I could tell he was seething. Later that night, he exploded, accusing me of undermining him and not trusting him to get things done. I tried to explain that I just wanted to help, but he wasn't having any of it. The next day, he was still in a bad mood. He started cleaning the kitchen in that frantic, angry way he does, slamming cabinet doors and muttering under his breath. I decided to leave the house for a bit to give him space and went to visit a friend. When I got back, the kitchen was spotless, but he was nowhere to be found. I called him and he said he was out fishing. I knew he was avoiding me, so I decided to use the time to clean up the rest of the house. I vacuumed the rugs, even though they kept getting caught in the tears, and cleaned the bathroom as best as I could. When he got back, he barely acknowledged my efforts and went straight to bed. On the third day, things took a turn. I found a letter on the kitchen table. It was from my boyfriend's ex-wife. She was asking for some of her things back, things he had promised to return years ago, but never did. This opened up a whole new can of worms. I confronted him about it, and he got defensive again, saying he didn't have time to deal with it because he was too busy taking care of me and the house. This was the last straw for me. I told him that he needed to start taking responsibility for his actions and stop blaming me for everything that goes wrong in his life. This led to a huge argument. He accused me of being ungrateful and not appreciating everything he does for me. I told him that I do appreciate it, but that doesn't give him the right to treat me like a maid and use me as an excuse to avoid his responsibilities. He stormed out of the house and didn't come back until late that night. When he did, he was drunk and started yelling at me again. I couldn't take it anymore and told him that if things didn't change, I was going to leave. The fallout from these events has been intense. My boyfriend has been sulking around the house, barely speaking to me. I've been trying to keep things clean and organized, but it's hard when he's constantly making a mess and not helping out. I've also been feeling really guilty about the whole situation. I know he supports me financially, and I feel like I'm not holding up my end of the bargain. But at the same time, I can't keep living like this. It's affecting my mental health, and I don't know how much more I can take. I've been thinking a lot about our relationship and how we got to this point. When we first started dating, he was so attentive and caring. He would go out of his way to make me happy, and always put my needs first. But over the years, things have changed. He's become more focused on his own needs and less concerned about mine. I think a lot of it has to do with his past. He had a rough childhood and never really learned how to properly express his emotions. He's always been a bit of a loner and has a hard time letting people in. I think that's why he's so defensive and quick to anger. He's afraid of being hurt and uses his anger as a way to protect himself. I've also been reflecting on my own actions and how they may have contributed to the situation. I know I can be a bit of a pushover and have a hard time standing up for myself. I've always been a people pleaser and hate conflict, so I tend to avoid it at all costs. But I realize now that by not standing up for myself, I've allowed him to treat me this way. I've enabled his behavior and let things get to this point. I need to start setting boundaries and standing up for myself if I want things to change. One thing that has become clear to me is that my boyfriend's true loyalties are being tested. He needs to decide whether he's going to continue blaming me for everything and avoiding his responsibilities, or if he's going to step up and start taking responsibility for his actions. I can't make that decision for him, but I can make a decision for myself. I need to decide whether I'm going to continue living like this or if I'm going to take control of my own life and make the changes I need to be happy. Thanks for reading. Aita for trying to save my relationship. While my partner pines for another woman, we will be together for 5 years in July. We have 2 children. I am a stay-at-home mom. He works in construction for 50 hours a week. I am looking forward to starting school in the fall. He is just so emotionless and flat sometimes. On the weekends, I ask him, "Hey, do you want to take bikes to the park or take a drive up north to the trails?" He will answer, "I don't know." He doesn't make decisions or take charge. He thinks I am pushing him out of his life. I try to get out and join groups of child-led walks out in nature so I can socialize myself and my toddler while our school-aged child is in class. It is so refreshing to see happy people and have lighthearted conversations. He told me I take care of everything and everybody except him. We don't have intimacy often recently. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment. He is a morning person, and I a night owl. He typically comes into the room after the toddler's awake and out of our bed and watching TV with big sibling. Him and I would kind of just pump and done. I really don't like being released in and then touched and trampled on by children immediately after the deed. They never let us have time out of their sight for long. There is no lock on the door. I shared this with my significant other, but I don't feel that he cared. He said he wants to be teased and wanted. He has no interest in going on dates. He just asks me, where would we go? What would we do? I say dinner, walks, just simple stuff. He doesn't have interest. I reminded him of how disinterested he was in the idea of going out for dates, and he said, well, you need to keep trying. We have no babysitter or family where we live that we can give the kids to for us to have time together. To add, I have sent him explicit pictures before and received no reply. This was fall 2023. I am wondering if I have truly been ignoring his needs, or if he is asking me to change in such a way that is out of my character. Should I be questioning the longevity of our relationship or try to do these things? I'm at a loss of how to fit into our relationship. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I wouldn't worry about taking care of him until he was taking care of me and the home in the ways I needed. No dates and won't even give an opinion when presented 2 choices? Yeah, I wouldn't give that man's happiness a second thought when I had 2 actual children to take care of. I'd ask what want to be wanted actually looks like, and then I'd tell my partner what he needs to do for me in order for that to be a focus and priority at this stage. In your relationship, when you're the parents to 2 kids and live in a 1-bedroom home. Comment 2. Yikes. I would leave. His total lack of reciprocity or effort, coupled with his insistence that you need to try harder, makes me feel like he likes doing this to take you down a peg. That's really upsetting. I would leave. I'd also tell him you want to want him, but he literally refuses to make any effort, and you won't chase someone who, when caught, acts like you're wrong. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, a lot has happened in the past week. Last Monday, I decided to take a different approach and really try to engage with him in a way that might spark some interest. I planned a surprise picnic at a nearby park, thinking that maybe if I took the initiative, he might appreciate it. I packed his favorite snacks and even brought along a small speaker to play some music we both like. When I told him about it, he just shrugged and said, "Sure, I guess." It was disheartening, but I went ahead with it anyway. When we got to the park, he seemed distant, more interested in his phone than in spending time with me or the kids. I tried to make conversation, asking about his work and how he was feeling, but his responses were short and uninterested. The kids were having a great time, though, running around and playing. At one point, our toddler fell and scraped a knee. I rushed over to comfort them, and he just sat there, barely looking up from his phone. It was like he was physically present, but emotionally absent. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I tried to talk to him about how I was feeling. I told him that I felt like he was checked out and that I needed him to be more present, not just for me, but for the kids, too. He got defensive, saying that he was tired from work and that I didn't understand the pressure he was under. I told him I did understand, but that we needed to find a way to connect. He just sighed and said, "I don't know what you want from me." The next day, I decided to join a new moms group that meets for coffee once a week. I thought it might help me feel less isolated and give me some adult interaction. The first meeting was great. The other moms were friendly and supportive. I shared a bit about my situation, and they offered some advice and encouragement. It felt good to be heard and understood. On Wednesday, something unexpected happened. I found an old journal of his while cleaning out the closet. I know I shouldn't have, but curiosity got the better of me, and I read a few entries. What I found was shocking. He had written about feeling trapped and unfulfilled in our relationship, but he also mentioned another woman from his work. He wrote about how she made him feel alive and appreciated, something he felt he was missing at home. My heart sank. I felt betrayed and hurt, but also confused. Why hadn't he told me any of this? That evening, I confronted him about the journal. He was furious that I had read it, but I told him I needed to know the truth. He admitted that he had developed feelings for this woman, but insisted that nothing physical had happened. He said he didn't know how to talk to me about it because he didn't want to hurt me. I was devastated, but also relieved that I finally had some answers. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I felt angry, sad, and betrayed, but also determined to figure out what to do next. I talked to a close friend about it, and she suggested couples therapy. I brought it up with him, and to my surprise, he agreed. He said he wanted to try to make things work for the sake of the kids and because he still cared about me. We had our first therapy session on Friday. It was intense, but also eye-opening. The therapist helped us both see how we had been neglecting each other's needs and how our lack of communication had led to this point. He admitted that he had been using work as an escape and that he felt guilty for not being more present. I admitted that I had been so focused on the kids and my own needs that I hadn't noticed how disconnected we had become. Over the weekend, we tried to spend more quality time together as a family. We went for a hike on a nearby trail, something we hadn't done in ages. It was nice to see him engage with the kids and actually enjoy himself. We even managed to have a real conversation without any arguments. It felt like a small step in the right direction. But before I get to that, there's something else I need to share. On Sunday, I received a message from the woman he had written about in his journal. She apologized for any pain she might have caused and assured me that nothing had happened between them. She said she had no intention of coming between us and that she respected our relationship. It was a bittersweet moment. I was grateful for her honesty, but also saddened by the reality of our situation. As I sit here writing this, I realize that we have a long road ahead of us. The trust has been broken, and it will take time to rebuild. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like we are both willing to put in the effort. I don't know what the future holds, but I am hopeful that we can find a way to reconnect and build a stronger relationship. Thanks for reading. Aita for letting my lazy dad move in and then kicking him out. He is chronically lazy and has been mooching off of her for 9 years. She finally had enough and kicked him out. As he has no money, no job, and no credit, he had to fall back on my aunt, his sister, to financially help him out. However, he can't rent a place because he has no references, no job, no savings, and will be rejected during checks. He is currently staying in a hotel Aunt paid. While I get the spare room organized for him, it is currently a home office. They pressured me to take him in because I have the spare room. He can't stay anywhere else as my family live abroad. I am dreading the day he comes. It's set for the end of June. My aunt is going to pay me to cover his costs, share of rent, bills, groceries, etc. I have lived alone for 8 years and very much enjoy my own space. I have a very stressful, very busy job in motorsports. And some days I am at work for 14 hours. It's exhausting, but I love it. And I am finally thriving in my own life because I'm at a place I enjoy. He will now suddenly be in my space. He is extremely lazy. He doesn't clean up after himself. My mother basically did everything for him. And then the woman he has been with all these years did the same for him until she got fed up. I keep my place very clean and neat because I don't like the idea of coming home to a mess after a hard day at work. I want to have a very serious talk to him about what I expect from him as a guest. But he is one of those who brushes stuff off and acts all, yeah, whatever. I don't want to come home to mess and clutter and him lazing around watching TV, which is all he ever does. But I also don't want him to be homeless. I want to give him a time frame of when he needs to sort his stuff out and get a job and leave. I don't want the rest of my life to be him mooching off of me and my aunt. I am now already stressed about him moving in and invading my private space and peace. I want to start dating again, and I'm sort of seeing someone. And now I feel that will be put on hold because my father will be at my place. My landlady has agreed it's okay for him to stay, and if I gave her the word, she will happily remove that agreement. I am in the United Kingdom, and he will be considered a lodger and not a tenant. I really want to avoid it ever getting to that, as it will just create family drama and stress, and I am trying to keep the peace in my life because I am just tired of family stress. I will end up going no contact with everyone if it gets to that point again. How do I set boundaries that will get through to him? How do I set a time frame for him to sort himself out and move on? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. My husband went through this with his father. Honest advice? Don't let him move in. He will not respect your boundaries or timeline, whatever he says now. It will be 100 times tougher when he refuses to move out, and you have to somehow kick him out. Then all the family will guilt trip you even more. And it will be terrible. It will be traumatic. There will be therapy. Tell him you've reconsidered, and this won't work for you. Those family members pressuring you are welcome to come up with alternative solutions. He can live in a hotel. He can live with them, but he cannot live with you. Comment 2. No one will hire him. He'll never leave. He'll trash your house, eat your food, and drive you insane. Again, no one will hire him. Again, he'll never leave. He has been enabled since birth. He has only faced consequences for his actions twice, when he was kicked out by your mom and then by his girlfriend. He will suck you dry. He will not be grateful. He will add nothing to your life. Send him to a shelter. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. So my dad moved in at the end of June as planned. The first few days were rough. He didn't seem to understand the concept of cleaning up after himself. I came home from a 14-hour shift to find dirty dishes piled up in the sink and crumbs all over the living room. I was already exhausted, and seeing the mess just made me snap. I had to sit him down and have a serious talk. I told him that if he wanted to stay here, he needed to pull his weight. I laid out some ground rules: clean up after yourself, contribute to the household chores, and actively look for a job. He gave me the usual yeah, whatever response. But I made it clear that I wasn't joking. The next day I came home to find him on the couch, watching TV, with the same mess still there. I was livid. I turned off the TV and told him that this was his final warning. He needed to start respecting my space or he would have to leave. He seemed to take me more seriously this time, probably because he saw how angry I was. Over the next few days, he made a bit of an effort. He cleaned up the kitchen once, and even vacuumed the living room. But it was clear that he was doing the bare minimum. I was still doing most of the work around the house, and it was starting to wear me down. I was also worried about my budding relationship. I had to cancel a couple of dates because I didn't want to leave my dad alone in my apartment. It felt like my life was being put on hold because of him. Then, something unexpected happened. My dad got a call from an old friend who offered him a job. It wasn't anything fancy, just some manual labor, but it was a start. He seemed excited about it, and for the first time in years, I saw a spark of motivation in him. He started getting up early, going to work, and coming home tired but satisfied. It was a huge relief for me. I hoped that this job would be the push he needed to get his life back on track. But things took a turn for the worse. After a week, he got into an argument with his friend and quit the job. He came home angry and frustrated, and I could see that old laziness creeping back in. I was disappointed but not surprised. I knew this was a possibility, but it still hurt to see him give up so easily. I decided to give him one last chance. I told him that he had 1 month to find another job and start contributing to the household. If he didn't, he would have to leave. He seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation this time. He started applying for jobs online and even went to a couple of interviews, but nothing seemed to stick. During this time, I learned more about why my dad ended up like this. My aunt told me that he had always been a bit of a dreamer, never really settling into any one job or career. He had big ideas, but never followed through on them. My mom had always been the one to keep him grounded, but after she passed away, he lost his way. It made me feel a bit more sympathetic towards him, but it didn't change the fact that he needed to get his act together. One day, I came home to find him packing his bags. He told me that he had found a place to stay with another friend and that he didn't want to be a burden on me anymore. I was relieved, but also a bit sad. Despite all the frustration, he was still my dad, and I wanted to see him succeed. I helped him pack and gave him some money to get by, until he found another job. After he left, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. My apartment was mine again, and I could finally focus on my own life. I went on a date with the guy I'd been seeing, and it went really well. It felt like things were finally starting to fall into place. Looking back, I realized that my dad's stay with me had changed my perspective on a lot of things. I learned that I needed to set boundaries and stick to them, even with family. I also learned that sometimes tough love is necessary to help someone get back on their feet. It wasn't easy, but I'm glad I went through it. It made me stronger and more confident in my ability to handle difficult situations. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.